everyone, I'm Brandy, an OpenSciEd teacher and professional learning facilitator. Welcome to OpenSciEd Chemistry, Unit 4, Lesson 5. In this lesson, we return to the anchoring phenomena about the oyster die-off, and we investigate how carbon dioxide could naturally dissolve in water with an experimental setup in the lab, and examine the amounts of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and the ocean. Let's get started. Let's take a look at how we got here. So during lesson 4, we figured out that all acids contain hydrogen ions and all bases contain hydroxide ions. Forced interactions between the molecules of atoms of water and the acid or base help explain why some dissociate more completely than others do in water. In this lesson, we're wondering, how does carbon dioxide move between the atmosphere and the ocean to cause the water to become more acidic? Here's the lesson at a glance. This investigation and problematizing lesson takes place over 3 days. The teacher's guide says about 60 minutes of material preparation is required to prepare the solutions for the investigation and the demonstration. You students won't need to have any devices during this lesson. There's 2 big parts to this lesson. Let's see what's happening in each. In the first loop, we investigate how carbon dioxide could naturally dissolve in water with a small-scale experimental setup in the lab. We figure out that carbon dioxide slowly gets into the water through a natural process that does not force carbon dioxide into the water. In the investigation, we focus on the movement of carbon from the atmosphere to the hydrosphere. So we wonder about the movement of carbon between other spheres. In the second loop, we consider the movement of carbon by examining graphical data about carbon dioxide changes and sources. After a building understandings discussion, we annotate our class consensus model with quantitative data that we gathered earlier, and then we rebrand our class consensus model to the carbon cycle by naming the spheres and applying the carbon cycle to the oysters. We figure out that atmospheric carbon dioxide has recently begun to dissolve into the ocean increasingly more due to the buildup of the atmospheric carbon dioxide caused by human activity. We also figure out that there's different amounts of carbon within the atmosphere, hydrosphere, biosphere, and geosphere. The carbon moves through these spheres at very different rates. Because the acidic solution we made by adding the carbon dioxide into a closed system shifted back toward its original pH when we left it out in the open system of our classroom overnight, we're now wondering what exactly is happening that would have caused that change. We figured out that more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere is dissolving into the ocean because human activities have increased the amount of carbon dioxide in the air. Carbon moves between the atmosphere, oceans, living things, and the earth, but the amount and the speed of this movement are different in each. Now for a few key moments. In part 3 is where your students will be conducting the dissolving carbon dioxide in water investigation. The gist of this investigation is the students add some bromothymol blue, or BTB, to the water, which is our model of the ocean. To simulate the carbon dioxide in the air, we'll run a side reaction with the baking soda and vinegar in a cup that's taped to the inside of the beaker. The foil then traps the carbon dioxide into the beaker in the system. Students observe where and how much color change happens with the BTB over time. You'll notice you'll want to provide them with a standard procedure, but your students will get to make a few more decisions about the types of additional data that are needed and how they will record this information in a data table. It's kind of important that you allow your groups time to develop the draft data tables that reflect the types of measurements to collect beyond just the observations. Later on, I'll share a few tips about what I did with my students in this lab to help it run smoothly. The point of the discussion in part 5 is to make connections between the small scale and the large scale systems. In part 2, you will have mapped the parts of the investigation setup to the class consensus model. In the tips section, I'll show you the lab map poster that I made for that purpose. I would make sure to have it handy here as well to help you facilitate this discussion. Collectively, you want your students to use the data from their investigation to describe the movement of carbon dioxide, and you want them to use the small-scale system to determine a cause and effect relationship to explain the large-scale changes of pH of the ocean water because of water's ability to dissolve and transport materials, in this case, carbon dioxide. Carbon's found in the atmosphere, in the ocean or hydrosphere, in living things, the biosphere, and in the ground or the geosphere. Much of this carbon is in the form of carbon dioxide. The figures and the data that the students examine in Part 7 show where the carbon can be found in Earth systems and how it moves between these spheres. Students will capture important and relevant noticings on sticky notes that they will then use to annotate the class consensus model later in Part 9. After annotating our class consensus model in Part 9 using that qualitative data that we collected on the sticky notes in Part 7, now that we're in Part 10, you will help guide your students to add in components of the carbon cycle. Remind the students that we first encountered Earth systems in the polar ice, Unit 1. This could be a good time to turn back to your Unit 1 personal glossary or progress tracker to help your students jog their memories about the specific carbon cycle terms that we want to add to our revised class consensus model at this time. It's important to add these labels to your class consensus model because up next in Part 11, the class will be applying the carbon cycle model to the oysters. So where do we go from here? We investigated how carbon dioxide naturally dissolves in water using a lab experiment, and we examined the amounts of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and the hydrosphere. So now we wonder, can carbon dioxide actually make the ocean more acidic? Now for a few tips and tricks. Here's the lab map investigation setup that I used in my classroom for Part 2 as we were preparing for the dissolving carbon dioxide into water investigation. I handed out the standard picture procedure that has images like this one on the right. For the lab map, I had the objects already drawn and I had the students help me label the parts. Then I added the sticky notes as the students suggested for how to map the small scale system to the large scale system. You'll want to double check the written directions with the pictures and change one or the other so they match what came with your kit or the materials that you choose. The directions reference using a plastic cup instead of the beaker shown here. Regardless of the materials you use, it's really important that your students can clearly see through the side of the cup or the beaker and that they get down to eye level with the surface of the water to see the color change of the BTB at the surface. While planning the investigation, students will also need to develop a data table to use. I sketched one like it's on the bottom of the chart after gathering students' input. Later on in Part 3, my students also decided that they want to add the number of pipette squirts of vinegar to their data table and pH readings of the vinegar and baking soda, as well as the final pH of the water and the BTB solution, which is not shown in this data table. In Part 5, I made sure to have this poster handy as the class was discussing our investigation findings and relating those findings to the small scale and the large scale. In Part 3, for the carbon dioxide and water investigation, here's a couple more tips that helped things run smoothly. First, after the students had a chance to read through their investigation procedure, I had each lab group select lab roles and actually write those roles down at the top of their paper as to which student was responsible for handling which item. I did this to help create a sense of equity and buy-in so that one student didn't just take over each lab group. Next, the directions asked the students to annotate the procedure with additional measurements that they might take. I had a few groups share out their ideas, and then as a class, we agreed that everyone would collect pH measurements at a few specific points so that we could compare those data afterward. Just at the beginning of the BTB, the pH of the vinegar by itself, and the final pH of the BTB after all of the vinegar squirts and the time was up. I also gathered suggestions from the groups about what should be included in the data table. The table shown here is the one that we actually finally ended up agreeing upon. I stressed with all my students that their lab group could take additional measurements any way that they saw fit, and that it would really help us compare data later on if everyone took at least the ones that we'd agreed upon shown here. Finally, I asked a couple of groups to keep their investigation setups to use on day 3 and to take pictures of the results of their investigation setup immediately after the investigation and added those to slide Z of the slide deck. For the personal glossary, you will co-construct with your students the meaning of carbon cycle. For poster management, you'll need the class consensus model that you created in lesson 1. You might consider creating the carbon dioxide and water investigation lab map like I showed earlier. That was in part 2. Finally, the carbon cycle model is really just your class consensus model that you added all of those quantitative data sticky notes and carbon sphere labels onto. You'll want to make sure that you keep that one posted in your room until the end of this unit, and you will definitely use it more in lesson 10. So to recap, in this lesson, we investigated how carbon dioxide could naturally dissolve in water with an experimental setup in the lab and examined amounts of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and hydrosphere. Up next in lesson 6, we'll use a simulation to explore how acidic water can become less acidic. We'll use the results to explain reversible reactions and equilibrium and analyze the data to understand how bond strength affects reaction stability and reversibility. Good luck and have fun.